Hello and welcome to Auto Shenanigans. How the devil are you? Have you had a good week? My name is John. Thank you very much for joining me for another exciting episode of Secrets of the Motorway. Today I've come to Manchester and we're going to take a look at the A57M, which is sometimes called Mancunian Way. It's about 1.5 miles long and it runs around the south of Manchester, from Manchester to another bit of Manchester, I don't know. This certainly seems a bit out of place, but when it was built in the 1960s, it wasn't classed as a motorway and it opened as a dual carriageway, and it was the first elevated main road to be built outside of London. It wouldn't be until the 1970s that it was upgraded to become a motorway. These upgrades included changing the road traffic regulations. Despite its short length, there are 5 junctions on the A57M, but none of them appear to be numbered, so it's difficult to say for sure which way round the motorway runs. We'll take a punt and start at the Downing Street junction, which is at the eastern end of the A57M. Today, the motorway runs across a flyover, but this wasn't added until the 1990s. Before then, the motorway would terminate at a roundabout with the A6. There was no continuation of the carriageway, but as I said, in the 1990s, a flyover was added. Here's where things get interesting, or possibly a bit boring. I'll try to keep it brief. The flyover here is actually 2 motorways at once, the A57M and the A635M. It's all signposted as the A57M, and indeed you won't find mention of the A635M on any map, but there is evidence to suggest that it exists. The theory is that when the flyover was added, the road layout would have looked a little bit like this, but we need this flyover to be under motorway regulations to stop non-motorway traffic from accessing it. Okay, so we'll make this bit a motorway, and it's this small motorway section that was given the A635M road number. Sure, it does connect directly to the A57M, but perhaps it was viewed as an extension of the A635 rather than the A57M. Whatever the situation, officially we can say that the A635M is a thing, but this whole stretch is numbered and considered as part of the A57M with no physical evidence to confirm its existence. I love motorways! Before we move on, at the junction there's a recently abandoned, or maybe it's just now been closed off, slip road. The eastbound A635 slip road was built along with the motorway flyover in the 1990s, but in more recent years seems to have been closed off. I'm not exactly sure why. I think it's down to redevelopment in the area, and maybe when it's finished the slip road will reopen, but if you've got any ideas, feel free to let me know. The next junction along arrives very quickly indeed, and it's known as the Sackville Street Junction. There are 2 things to note about this junction. One, they're definitely not built as motorway slip roads. Looking at it, I'm not even sure that the slip roads onto Sackville Street are large enough to be classed as slip roads, so I don't know who came up with that. I suppose we need to bear in mind that originally the road was opened as a dual carriageway, so perhaps we could forgive the design, but let's not. 2 is the small ghost slip road that pokes out from the main carriageway. If we take a look at historical satellite images, we notice that the ghost slip road used to be far larger than what we see today. Most of it's been removed due to redevelopment of the area. The original plan was for the slip road to link up with the A34, which would have been widened to accommodate the slip road. This plan nicely demonstrates the idea, and you'll also notice that the small stupid slip roads at Sackville Street were supposed to have a different layout. I imagine the current slip roads were set up as a temporary measure. The next 2 junctions along are both limited access, but between them offer the complete motorway junction package of 4 slip roads. At the Medlock Street junction, we notice the Princess Road to the south has got an awful lot of spare room, maybe for some additional carriageways. It's almost as if something was supposed to be built here, but wasn't. Indeed, the Medlock Street junction was very nearly a 3-level motorway interchange where we'd have found the A57M and the Princess Parkway motorway. Back in the 1960s, there was of course a batshit mental road building plan in place that would have seen the addition of several more motorways and main roads around Manchester. It might have looked a bit like this, and had the plan been carried out in its entirety, Medlock Street and Princess Road would have been a motorway connecting the M56 and the M60 to the city centre via the A57M. So the tree-lined central reservation where I'm standing now is very nearly turned into a motorway, but wasn't. We've nearly reached the end already, but just before the last junction, the motorway runs underneath the Mancunian Way footbridge. Originally, there was a subway or underpass that allowed you access to either side of the motorway, but in its later years, it wasn't exactly what you would describe as nice, so somebody decided to replace it with a footbridge. The footbridge opened in 2002 following 3 years of consultation and construction. And it's interesting because it offers a unique design, with the curved section having no supports underneath it when crossing over the motorway. The footbridge is mostly of steel construction and lined with timber, but it's been suggested that the original design for the bridge was for it to be completely made out of timber, but I imagine they settled on a steel wood mix because it was probably the more sensible option. After the footbridge, we find the final junction on the A57M, the Deansgate interchange. Much like the first junction we looked at earlier, originally the A57M came to an end here at a roundabout. In the 1990s, an extension to the motorway was built into a cutting underneath the roundabout. However, in this case, there were no silly road numbering situations. It was simply just an extension of the A57M. The motorway comes to an end just before you drive under some viaducts, one of which is the Castlefield Viaduct. It was built in 1892 and runs for 330 metres. It used to carry freight trains delivering and collecting goods to and from the nearby Great Northern Warehouse, a building that could hold and move 150 wagons across 2 levels via a complicated hydraulic lift system with space for another 500 wagons in its sidings. It was built on top of a canal junction with a dock constructed so goods could be lifted directly into the warehouse from the boats. Today the warehouse has been redeveloped into a cinema, casino and a car park. Back to the viaduct, and it closed in 1969, sitting unused until 2021 when the National Trust decided to turn it into what they call a sky park. I'm not sure what a sky park is exactly, but from what I can see it's planting some stuff on some old infrastructure and knowing the National Trust charging you an absolute fortune to come and see it. Fucking trams, man. The Sky Park days may already be numbered though, because the City Council have only granted permission for them to operate up until autumn 2024, at which point things could be extended, but we won't know until nearer the time. Anyway, that's pretty much it for the A57M, and you may be asking yourself, what's the point? Why have it at all when it doesn't really seem to contribute much to the transport system? Today, perhaps not, but we only need to look over those 1960s road building plans to see that once upon a time it possibly made a lot more sense, or at least in the context of the A57M it did. The A57M would have connected up the M602 and the M67 motorways, offering a speedy way to cross the city and access those motorways. Not forgetting, of course, that there may have been the Princess Parkway motorway added into the mix as well, making for a very efficient road network, but most of that was never built. And there we are then, guys. That's all I've got for this week. Thanks very much for watching. I hope you liked the video. If you did, there is of course a button specifically for that, and if you haven't subscribed already, please consider doing so. That'll be wicked sweet awesome. Enjoy the rest of your week, whatever it is you get up to. My name's John. You've been watching Auto Shenanigans, and we have some people walking around. All right, guys. Cool. Enjoy the rest of your week, whatever it is you get up to. My name's John, you've been watching Auto Shenanigans, and I'll see you guys next time for another exciting episode of Secrets of the Motorway. Till then, take care, bye-bye.